Hello everyone, we're back today with a new video. In this video, I'm going to show you my different pairings, what is currently working best for me, as well as what I'm still working on. On top of that, there will be a gameplay section where you'll be able to see the way I play. I'm also going to give you several tips, as well as the elements that are, in my opinion, the most important for becoming the best mage possible in fights. And as usual, we're going to start with a quick look at my performance, simply to show you that I'm not giving you random advice, but that these are things that actually work for me in the game. During Season 3, I achieved more than 47 million merits with only 29 million power. And this season, I achieved around 38 million merits with 37 million power, while fighting a huge number of T5 players. And to give you an idea regarding my healing, I have only healed 22 million troops using resources. So overall, I have a very good ratio between the merits I have earned and the number of troops I have had to heal using resources. Now we can move on to my pairing. So to begin with, all of my legions are currently using Celestials. Celestials are simply far better than Vestals. My first pairing is Yun Ming with Thalea. I'm currently working on maxing Yun Ming, and once that is finished, I'm going to start upgrading Thalea to bring her to 5,551. For the artifact, I use Dragon Fate, and for the war pet, I use a Sand Lizard. In total, I have 2 maxed Sand Lizards, while the others are more of a mid-investment. And honestly, 2 maxed Sand Lizards are more than enough when it comes to healing. Having more would mainly result in overhealing, and that is exactly what we want to avoid. As for the talent tree, this is what it looks like. There is something important that I recently changed. I moved to 33% march speed on all of my legions. Personally, I think this stat is extremely strong. It simply allows you to move faster and therefore be better positioned during fights. Whether it's to attack, reach a target, reposition yourself, or simply avoid getting caught, march speed is, in my opinion, extremely important. On top of that, 33% march speed is accessible for all heroes with the Mage and PvP talent trees, so for almost every pairing. My second legion is Selûne with Bertrand. For the artifact, I use Mirage Orb. And for the war pet, I use a Seraphic Drake, which I'm currently working on maxing. To be completely honest, it is not excellent yet because I haven't given it much attention so far, but for now, it does the job perfectly well. As for the talent tree, this is what it looks like. And once again, my goal is to reach 33% march speed by combining the bonuses from the talent tree with those provided by skills. For my third march, I use Thundolin with Mu Xiang. For the artifact, I use Infernal Flame. This artifact works very well with this pairing. Thunder Elegy would also work very well, but I don't own that artifact. And most importantly, I prefer having an attack-oriented artifact on this duo because this duo deals a huge amount of damage through skills. For the war pet, once again, I use a Sand Lizard. And when it comes to the talent tree, once again, I aim for 33% march speed. As you can see, this is something I really prioritize on all of my legions. And now for my fourth and final legion, I use Lilia with Thea. For the artifact, I use the Sanctus Visage. In my opinion, it works better than Infernal Flame with this pairing. For the war pet, I also use a Sand Lizard. However, there is one important point. I give it Heartwall in order to get more artifact damage. There is very good synergy between Heartwall and the Sanctus Visage, which makes this choice particularly interesting. On top of that, it also makes you more resistant because you have more shields. And when it comes to the talent tree, once again, I aim to reach 33% march speed. In this specific case, I obviously take into account the 20% march speed that Thea already has through her skills. Now that we've gone through my different legions, artifacts, war pets, and talent trees, we can finally move on to the gameplay section. In this part, you'll be able to see exactly how I use my marches during fights, how I position myself, and most importantly, what are, in my opinion, the most important elements for playing mages effectively in the open field. Let's go! Now we're going to talk about gameplay and how to properly manage your legions when playing mages. First of all, one very important point before we start, make sure to disable autocast on your DPS artifacts. Then I'm going to divide this part into 3 main sections: clicking and managing your movements, choosing your targets, and finally, overall positioning and understanding when and how you can afford to be aggressive while still staying safe. To start with mouse clicks, And this also applies to mobile players. You should never play in a way where you simply do this. Click on an enemy, move back, click on an enemy, move back. It is important to make additional clicks between your attacks. Take your time to position yourself properly, move into the enemy's range, and once you're in a good position, attack them unexpectedly. This is much more effective than targeting an enemy from far away and walking directly toward them for 10 seconds. In that situation, the enemy sees you coming and has plenty of time to react, move back, or reposition. Another very important point is to anticipate your clicks. For example, when you're attacking an enemy and you find yourself in front of your team, start positioning your mouse behind your legions. This way, as soon as you get focused or feel that your position is becoming dangerous, you can immediately click to move back. You should always try to stay one step ahead with your movements. Anticipating with your mouse is extremely important, and for mobile players, the principle is exactly the same. Always prepare your next movement before you actually need it. Now, let's talk about targets. Mages deal area of effect damage, so it is very important to play around this strength. For example, if you have 3 infantry units grouped closely together, you won't necessarily target the strongest one directly. Instead, you should try to target the infantry legion that, at first glance, deals the least amount of counterattack damage to you. For example, this could be Maokai, Danful, Mogro, or Madeline. The goal is simple. You choose the target that deals the least amount of counterattack damage to you, while using your area of effect damage to hit the much more dangerous legions around it. Another example, if you zoom in and spot a T5 player with maxed decorations, you want to use your area of effect damage to hit their strongest units. But whenever possible, you should first target the infantry unit that deals the least amount of counterattack damage to you. This allows you to deal maximum damage to the stronger units around it, without directly taking their full counterattack damage. The same principle applies when archers and mages are grouped together. In that situation, you will generally prioritize targeting the mages in order to deal your area of effect damage to the archers. Why? Because archers can deal an enormous amount of counterattack damage. So, if you have the choice between several targets in the same area, try to choose the weakest one or the one that deals the least amount of counterattack damage to you. This way, you take less damage while using your AoE to hit the more dangerous legions. And once those stronger legions have been weakened enough, you can then finish them off. Another important point regarding targets: always try to focus cavalry that charges directly into your DPS ball. These units need to be eliminated quickly. They are often very aggressive and represent an immediate threat to your backline, so don't let them stay in contact with your team for too long. Now let's move on to the second major point: overall positioning. There is one very important thing you need to keep in mind. You should never make the mistake that the players on the other side will make 100% of the time. When playing mages, you should always try to anticipate and move before you are actually in danger. This is especially important when it comes to avoiding damage. Don't wait until you're completely in front and getting focused by several enemies before deciding to move back. It is better to start moving back as soon as you begin getting within range of the enemy mages. Create real distance. Then wait for an enemy player to make the mistake of moving too far forward. That is when you can punish them. When it comes to positioning itself, I would mainly advise you to pay close attention to the gameplay, because this is something that is quite difficult to explain using words alone. But in general, remember one thing: it is better to move too early than too late. Don't desperately try to stay for 1 or 2 extra seconds just to cast one more skill. In many situations, being too greedy will simply cause you to take a huge amount of damage or get killed. You can also use another technique. You can move back while continuing to attack infantry in order to build up your rage. Then, when your rage bar is almost full, you can quickly move forward, attack an enemy who is too far forward, use your skill, and immediately move back. This is a very good way to stay relatively safe while continuing to deal damage. Still regarding positioning, try to stay inside your DPS ball as much as possible. Don't move too far away from your group unless you have a really good angle. By staying inside the DPS ball, you benefit from different buffs, such as the Vestals of your allies. But most importantly, you are much less accessible. Enemies will have a much harder time flanking you or directly catching you. An isolated mage is an easy target. A mage that is properly positioned in the middle of their team is much more difficult to reach. So, unless you have an excellent opportunity, try to stay with your team. And now, to finish this section, Let's talk about when you can afford to be aggressive. For this, it is important to have a good understanding of the ranges of the different units. The idea is to wait for an enemy archer or mage to move too far forward. Very often, after some time, players become impatient. They desperately want to deal damage and eventually take one step too far forward. That is when you can move forward and punish that mistake. But be careful. When you go after a player who has moved too far forward, you must always make sure to stay outside the range of the enemy backline. Go after the player who takes one step too far, but never make that same mistake yourself. This is probably one of the most important points. You should not be aggressive simply because you feel like going in to deal damage. Your aggression should mainly be a reaction to mistakes made by the enemy. To summarize, when positioning yourself, you should always anticipate and be extremely careful. And when you want to be aggressive, it should almost always be a reaction to an enemy mistake. I strongly advise against making the first move when you want to play aggressively. Simply be patient and wait for the mistake. Gameplay is hugely underestimated in this game, and yet many players will inevitably make positioning mistakes. Sorry if this is a bit difficult to explain using words alone, but in this game, spacing, for those who know the term, is fundamental. And for those who don't fully understand what I mean, I hope the gameplay HPL you to see exactly how I play and how I apply all of these principles during fights. Thank you all for watching until the end. And most importantly, don't forget, mages are life.